Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where one choice could completely change your life? A moment that starts with what seems like a small decision, but before you know it, everything you thought you knew about yourself and your relationships begins to shift? That's exactly the kind of story I'm about to share with you today, a story that's messy, complicated, and impossible to forget. It's about temptation, boundaries, and the kind of unexpected moments that force you to question who you really are. It all started on an ordinary night. My husband had gone to sleep after a long day at work, exhausted and unaware of what was about to unfold. I was alone in the house with my stepson, someone I had always considered just family, someone I never imagined could spark such complicated feelings. At first, it was innocent, or at least that's what I told myself. We were just talking, laughing about little things, sharing stories late into the night. But the atmosphere shifted in ways I couldn't have anticipated, and suddenly the line between what was right and what was tempting became blurry. The tension was electric, and I could feel it in every glance, every pause, every word that hung in the air longer than it should have. I kept asking myself, why am I feeling this way? How did it even come to this? Have you ever had that kind of moment where a person's presence makes your heart race, even when you know it's complicated territory? I want you to think about that for a second, because that feeling, confusing, thrilling, and terrifying all at once, is at the heart of this story. As the night went on, I found myself agreeing to something I never thought I would, something that would forever change the way I saw myself and my family. I agreed to share a bed with my stepson while my husband slept in another room, believing I could control the situation, believing nothing would go too far. But of course, life doesn't work that way. Moments like these rarely stay contained, and the night had a way of pulling both of us deeper into something we weren't ready for. I've always considered myself a devoted wife, someone who values family above everything else. My husband is a good man, hardworking, caring, and loyal, but sometimes life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. My stepson, on the other hand, has been part of my life for a few years now, and I've watched him grow from a shy teenager into this confident, charming young man. It's strange how familiarity can sometimes blur the lines between affection and something more complicated. I never thought I would feel anything beyond a parental concern for him, yet that night, something shifted. It wasn't like it happened all at once. It was in the little moments. The way he laughed at my silly jokes, how our hands brushed as we reached for the same blanket, the quiet closeness that filled the room when no one else was around. I found myself noticing things I shouldn't, heart racing with feelings I didn't expect. I kept telling myself to stop, to remember my vows, to remind myself that some lines are never meant to be crossed. But the more I tried to push it away, the more magnetic the connection felt. Looking back, I realize now that the tension had been building for weeks. There were small signs I had ignored at first, a lingering glance, a touch that lasted just a second too long, moments when the world seemed to shrink to just the two of us. Those moments had always been easy to dismiss, and yet they were setting the stage for what was about to happen. I had no idea that agreeing to share the bed that night would become the turning point, the moment where everything I thought I knew about desire, temptation, and loyalty collided. I keep thinking about the odd mix of emotions that course through me: excitement, fear, guilt, and curiosity, all tangled together. I could feel the weight of my decisions pressing down on me, and yet there was an undeniable thrill in the closeness, in the stolen moments when the rest of the world didn't exist. What does it mean when a simple, seemingly innocent choice opens doors to feelings you've tried so hard to ignore? How far can one person be pushed by desire before they cross the line they've promised never to approach? Even now, I can't fully explain why I didn't stop it sooner. Maybe it was the loneliness, or the longing for attention that had quietly built up over the years. Maybe it was the chemistry, undeniable and electric, that neither of us could ignore. There's a strange power and tension in the unspoken, in knowing that just one decision can change everything. And in that moment, as we lay there, the night stretching on with silence around us, I realized just how complicated and dangerous desire can be. The next few days were a whirlwind of mixed emotions. I kept replaying that night in my mind, trying to rationalize what had happened and convince myself that it was just a fleeting mistake. But the more I tried to push it away, the more it lingered. Every time I saw my stepson, there was this unspoken tension between us, a quiet awareness that something had changed. He, too, seemed to be carrying a weight in his eyes, a kind of curiosity and hesitation that mirrored my own. It was as if we were both trapped in this strange, delicate dance, unsure of the next step but unable to step back. I started noticing little things that I hadn't before, the way he would linger in the kitchen while I cooked, how his voice softened when we talked late at night, or the way he found excuses to brush past me. It was innocent on the surface, but underneath, it felt charged, electric, dangerous. And then there was my husband, completely unaware, sleeping peacefully at the other end of the house, trusting me completely. The guilt weighed heavily, gnawing at me every time I glanced at him. How could I reconcile these feelings, these moments of temptation, with the love and respect I had for the man I married? At the same time, my stepson was dealing with his own inner struggle. I could see it in the little pauses, the awkward smiles, the moments where he seemed to be weighing every word before speaking. He was caught between respect, curiosity, and desire, and it was clear he was as confused as I was. It made me wonder, are emotions like this ever truly one-sided, or do we all secretly play with the same fire, knowing it's dangerous, but unable to resist? Meanwhile, life went on around us, mundane and ordinary, and yet every small interaction was layered with tension. I had to pretend everything was normal, to laugh at jokes, to engage in casual conversations, while internally, I was constantly replaying that night. I questioned myself, am I imagining things? Am I reading too much into small gestures? Or is this something more, something deeper that I can't easily ignore? There was also a subtle shift in my own self-awareness. I started noticing how my heart reacted to his presence, the way a glance could make my pulse race, or how a touch on the arm, no matter how innocent, sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't help but wonder how much of this was real desire, and how much was the thrill of the forbidden. And I realized that sometimes it isn't just the act itself that holds power, it's the anticipation, the unspoken tension, the questions you can't answer. By the time another week had passed, the tension in the house was almost unbearable. Every glance, every casual touch felt charged with unspoken meaning. I tried to carry on with daily life, helping my stepson with homework, making dinner, and keeping the house running smoothly, but inside, I was constantly aware of the delicate line we were teetering on. It wasn't just a feeling anymore, it had become a living presence, shaping the way we interacted and pulling us both closer without either of us fully understanding why. There were moments when we would catch each other's eyes, a silent acknowledgement passing between us, and my heart would race in ways I hadn't experienced in years. He would ask me about trivial things, yet I could feel the weight behind his words, as if every question, every smile, was loaded with meaning. I kept reminding myself that boundaries exist for a reason, but boundaries can feel fragile when tension builds slowly, layer by layer, day by day. My husband remained blissfully unaware, trusting me in ways that made my guilt sting sharper with every passing moment. I would watch him sleeping peacefully at night, and a wave of conflicting emotions would hit me: love, loyalty, shame, and desire all tangled together. The knowledge that one wrong move could unravel everything we had built made every moment with my stepson feel like a dangerous game. And yet, the pull between us only seemed stronger. Late one night, the house was quiet, shadows stretching across the walls, and the world outside seemed distant, almost unreal. We were sitting together on the couch, sharing a blanket, talking softly about things that didn't matter on the surface, but felt weighty underneath. There was a pause, a breathless silence where I realized that neither of us wanted to break it yet, this fragile, electrifying connection that had been forming between us. I could feel it, and I knew he could too. I kept thinking about the what-ifs and the possibilities that loomed like storm clouds over every interaction. How far could we go without crossing a line we could never come back from? Could a single night, a single touch, really alter the future of our family forever? I can't tell you what would happen next because, honestly, I didn't know myself. All I knew was that the tension was reaching a peak, and the next choice we made could change everything. Just when I thought the tension had reached its peak, life had a way of throwing a new complication into the mix. That evening, my husband mentioned that he would be working late for the next few nights, leaving the house completely quiet except for the two of us. At first, I tried to convince myself that it was no big deal, that it would be easier to maintain boundaries with him out of the house. But deep down, I knew the opposite was true. The absence of my husband removed the safety net, and suddenly, the closeness I shared with my stepson felt even more dangerous, more intense. That night, we were sitting in the living room again, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows across the walls. We laughed at small things, joked about shared memories, and I felt that electric pull again, the same one that had haunted me for days. But then he said something unexpected, something that made my heart skip and my mind spiral. He admitted that he had been feeling the same tension I was, that he didn't fully understand why we were drawn to each other, but that he couldn't deny it anymore. The honesty in his voice, combined with the vulnerability in his eyes, caught me off guard. It was the confirmation of something I had been feeling, but was too afraid to admit aloud. I froze, unsure how to respond, caught between guilt and curiosity, loyalty and desire. This was the moment when I realized the stakes had just gotten higher. It wasn't just a fleeting temptation anymore. It was mutual, undeniable, and dangerous in ways I hadn't anticipated. My thoughts raced. What would happen if this escalated? Could I still protect my marriage, my family, my own sense of morality? Or had we already crossed an invisible line that couldn't be uncrossed? As if to complicate matters further, there was another twist I hadn't expected. That same night, a friend of the family called unexpectedly, saying they were coming by to drop off some things. The timing couldn't have been worse. Suddenly, the quiet house was about to be invaded, and the delicate balance we were maintaining teetered on the edge of disaster. I had to act normal, act composed, all while the unspoken tension between us was palpable. Every glance, every gesture, felt loaded with meaning, and I could sense him feeling it too. In that moment, I realized how quickly desire and circumstance could conspire to create situations beyond our control. I could feel my heart pounding, every thought screaming caution, yet every instinct telling me to stay close, to feel the connection that had grown between us. The presence of another person, someone who would notice any hint of awkwardness, added a layer of suspense that made the tension almost unbearable. Every laugh, every word, every pause became a delicate game of balance, and one misstep could shatter everything. The tension that had been building for days reached its peak that night. The house was quiet, shadows stretching across the walls, and the weight of unspoken emotions hung heavily in the air. I could feel my heart racing as we sat close together, the same closeness that had been both thrilling and terrifying for weeks. Every glance, every accidental brush of a hand, felt like a spark ready to ignite something we weren't supposed to pursue. And yet, in that moment, it all came to a head. We finally spoke honestly, laying bare our feelings in a way we had both avoided. The attraction, the tension, the unacknowledged longing, it was all out in the open. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. I realized how much I had underestimated the power of honesty, and how fragile the line between right and wrong could be. And then, just as the air grew thick with possibility, my husband's voice echoed from the doorway. He had returned earlier than expected. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to appear composed, but he merely smiled, noticing nothing unusual. The relief was overwhelming, yet it left the moment suspended, unresolved. In that instant, I understood the real truth. The connection I shared with my stepson wasn't just about desire, it was about unspoken understanding, companionship, and the intensity of human emotions that can't always be neatly categorized. It forced me to confront my feelings and my commitments, to realize that desire alone isn't enough to dictate actions. We made a silent decision, an unspoken agreement to step back, to preserve the family we both loved, even if it meant burying the intensity that had grown between us. But just when I thought the storm had passed, another twist came. A message appeared on my phone, one I hadn't expected. It was from someone who had noticed the subtle tension between us, a friend, maybe more observant than either of us realized. The text hinted at knowledge of the moments we had tried to keep secret, a reminder that no matter how careful we were, the consequences of our emotions could reach farther than we imagined. The thrill and danger of our connection weren't entirely over. I sat there, heart pounding, realizing that life doesn't always provide neat endings. Sometimes, the choices we make lead to growth, sometimes to regret, and sometimes to unexpected surprises that force us to reflect on who we are and what we truly want. The night had tested boundaries, temptation, and loyalty, and though the immediate conflict was resolved, the undercurrent of suspense remained, a reminder that emotions, once awakened, are rarely easily contained. After that night, life slowly returned to its rhythm, but the experience left a lasting impression on both of us. My stepson and I maintained our closeness, but now it was carefully redefined, a connection based on understanding, trust, and mutual respect rather than temptation. We learned to navigate the complicated emotions that had arisen, acknowledging the feelings without acting on them, and respecting the family bonds that truly mattered. My husband remained blissfully unaware of the intensity that had almost threatened the peace of our home. The relief of knowing that our family was intact was immense, but it also reminded me how delicate trust can be and how easily one night could have unraveled everything. It was a lesson in restraint, self-awareness, and the power of decisions made in moments of vulnerability. We all grew from the experience. I discovered a new level of emotional resilience, a better understanding of desire versus commitment, and an appreciation for the strength it takes to set boundaries, even when emotions run deep. My stepson matured too, realizing that feelings are complex, but actions have consequences, and that respect for family and self must always come first. The closeness we shared evolved into a supportive, affectionate relationship that strengthened the family rather than compromising it. Looking back, I realized that this story isn't just about temptation or romantic tension. It's about understanding human emotions, the fine line between curiosity and responsibility, and the choices that define who we are. We can be drawn toward things we shouldn't, but it's how we respond, the boundaries we set, and the respect we maintain that truly shapes our lives. The final twist, the message that hinted at outside awareness of our tension, reminded us that life rarely lets secrets stay hidden. It reinforced the idea that every decision carries weight, and that honesty, reflection, and thoughtful action are essential. While the suspense of that night lingered as a memory, it became a source of growth, rather than regret. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How did this ending make you feel? Would you have handled it differently? And would you like a sequel exploring what happens to the family dynamics years later? Leave your comments below. I want to know how you'd navigate these complicated emotions. Story summary. And I agreed to share a bed with my stepson when my husband slept. A true infidelity story. A wife navigates forbidden attraction, emotional tension, and moral boundaries in her family. This story explores the intensity of human desire, the weight of choices, and the lessons learned when temptation tests loyalty. With suspense, romantic tension, and unexpected twists, it's a gripping narrative about family, love, and self-discovery.